Stop everything and do not scroll past this moment, because what you are about to witness is not just an airport departure. It is the exact second a quiet story came to an end between Su Kai and Tan Songyun, and if you stay with this until the very end, you're going to understand why this goodbye was not loud, not dramatic, but final in a way that left nothing else to be said. The morning in Hangzhou began like any other. Soft light stretching across the terminal. People moving with purpose. Announcements echoing through the air in a rhythm that never stops. Everything felt ordinary until he walked in. Su Kai moved through the airport with a calm that felt almost too steady. No rush. No visible emotion. Just a quiet presence that made people look twice without knowing why. There was no statement. No explanation. No confirmation. But something about the way he carried himself felt different. Not distant. Not closed off. But resolved. And that was what made the moment heavy. Because resolution does not come without something ending. The cameras followed from a distance. Not aggressively, but carefully. As if even those watching understood that this was not a moment to disturb. Just to witness. His steps were slow but certain. Each movement deliberate. Each pause meaningful. As if he was aware that this was not just another departure. This was something else. Something that would not repeat itself. On the other side of the city, Tan Songyun remained out of sight. No appearance. No response. No sign. And that absence spoke louder than anything she could have said. Because sometimes silence is not avoidance. It is acceptance. The kind that does not need to be explained. Back at the airport, Su Kai reached the security line. The place where everything becomes final. Where movement forward cannot be undone. Where every step taken leaves something behind. He paused. Not long, but long enough. Long enough for it to be noticed. Long enough for it to matter. His gaze shifted. Not toward anyone specific, but toward something unseen. As if he was looking at a memory rather than a moment. And in that second, everything people had speculated about suddenly felt real. Not confirmed, not spoken, but understood. The connection that had once been hinted at. The moments that had once been questioned. The closeness that had once been denied. All of it felt present, even in its absence. Because endings do not erase what existed. They define it. He adjusted his bag slightly. A small movement, but one that broke the stillness just enough to continue. He stepped forward, crossing the line. And just like that, something shifted. Not loudly, not visibly, but permanently. Because some moments do not need words to be understood. They carry their meaning in the way they happen. People watched. Not with excitement. Not with curiosity. But with something quieter. Something closer to realization. Because what they were witnessing was not just a departure. It was closure. The kind that does not come with explanation. The kind that does not offer clarity. The kind that simply exists and leaves everything else behind. Tan Songyun's silence continued. Not broken. Not filled. Just steady. As if she had already reached the place he was walking toward. A place where nothing more needed to be said. Where what had been was enough. And what would be no longer included it. Su Kai did not look back. Not once. Not at the cameras. Not at the space behind him. Because looking back is not always part of a goodbye. Sometimes the absence of it is what makes the goodbye real. He moved through the terminal, disappearing gradually into the flow of everything else, until he was no longer visible. And that was when it settled. The understanding, the quiet confirmation, that this was not a pause, not a break, not something temporary. This was the end. Not of something loud, not of something defined, but of something that had existed quietly. And meant more than anyone fully realized. The story does not end with confrontation. It does not end with explanation. It ends with something far more powerful. A moment that says everything without saying anything at all. Because not every ending needs closure in words. Some endings are defined by movement, by distance, by the simple act of walking away and not returning. And now the only question that remains is this. When something meaningful ends without a clear reason or final conversation, Do you hold on to what it was? Or do you accept that some stories are meant to finish quietly? If this moment made you feel something real and you want to understand what comes next, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who understands that the most powerful goodbyes are not the ones spoken out loud. They're the ones felt long after everything is over. The moment he disappeared beyond the gate, it should have been over. Just another departure swallowed by the endless rhythm of flights and footsteps. But if you stay with this until the very end, you are going to understand why what happened after Su Kai left Hangzhou did not end anything between him and Tan Songyun. It simply revealed what had already been decided long before that final walk. The airport returned to normal almost immediately.
People moved again.
Voices rose. Announcements continued, as if nothing significant had happened. But for those who had witnessed it, something lingered. A quiet awareness that they had just seen the closing of something that would not reopen. Su Kai sat by the window of the plane, not looking at anything specific, just staring outward as the city slowly became distant. Lights shrinking, details fading, everything becoming smaller, simpler, further away. And that was when it settled. Not the sadness, not the weight, but the clarity. Because distance does not always create loss. Sometimes it creates understanding. He reached for his phone,
Paused.
then unlocked it. Not out of impulse, not out of uncertainty, but because there was something unfinished that could not be left behind. On the other side of the city, Tan Songyun was alone, not surrounded by noise, not distracted by anything else, just sitting in a space that felt quieter than usual. Her phone rested beside her, screen dark, unmoved, but not unnoticed, because even in silence, some things remain present. When it lit up, she did not pick it up immediately, not because she did not want to, but because she understood that this moment mattered, that whatever was waiting would not disappear. It would simply wait, just like everything else between them had. She finally reached for it, not hurried, not hesitant, just ready. The message was simple. No long explanation. No attempt to revisit everything that had already been felt. Just a few words. He told her that he did not look back. Not because he did not want to, but because he knew if he did, he might not be able to leave. And leaving was something he had already chosen. He told her that what they had was real, even if it did not have a place to continue, even if it did not fit into what came next. And that was enough. Tan Songyun read the message slowly, not because it was difficult to understand, but because she wanted to feel every part of it. Because sometimes the simplest words carry the deepest meaning. She did not reply immediately, not because she did not have something to say, but because she understood that not every moment requires a response. Some moments require acceptance. She stood up, walked toward the window, and looked out at the same city that had just watched him leave. Everything still there. Everything unchanged. Except for one thing. The space he had occupied. The presence that had once been part of her world. Now existing somewhere else. Moving forward. Without her. She finally replied. Not with questions. Not with emotion that demanded anything in return. Just with truth. She told him she understood. Not everything, not perfectly, but enough. Enough to know that what they had did not need to be explained. It did not need to be defined. It only needed to be remembered. And sometimes that is the only ending a story gets. Su Kai read the message mid-flight. The quiet of the cabin surrounding him. The steady hum of movement beneath everything. He closed his eyes for a moment, not in regret, not in doubt, but in acceptance. Because what they had shared was not something that could be undone, even if it could not continue. When the plane landed, everything resumed. Schedules, commitments, expectations. Life continuing in the way it always does. But something had shifted. Not visibly, not dramatically, but permanently. Tan Songyun returned to her routine.
Calm.
Focused, unchanged on the surface, but carrying something deeper beneath it. Not sadness, not loss, but memory. The kind that does not fade quickly. The kind that stays quietly, without needing to be revisited. Su Kai moved forward as well, not forgetting, not ignoring, but allowing what had ended to remain where it belonged, in the past. The story does not end with reunion. It does not end with reversal. It ends with something far more real. Two people choosing to move forward, not because they stopped caring, but because they understood that some connections are not meant to last forever. They are meant to happen,
To change you.
and then to end. And now the only question that remains is this. When something meaningful ends without anger, without closure, without a final conversation that ties everything together, do you try to hold on to it? Or do you accept that some stories are complete even without a perfect ending? If this continuation made you feel something real and you want to see more stories like this, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who understands that the most powerful endings are not always loud. They are the ones that stay with you long after everything is over.